Alright, we have our last three shapes here, okay? First of all, I'd like you to take out your packet and look at this portion first. Alright, we're going to talk about the front of this flow chart for a second here, okay? Okay, so this little flow chart looking thing here, there's a purpose for this, alright? It's kind of tell you, before we do some always, sometimes, never things, okay? First of all, as I move down the flow chart, okay? That's when I'm looking at the sometimes. Alright, so sometimes these shapes are considered the ones below. Like sometimes a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. Sometimes a parallelogram is just a rectangle. Sometimes a rectangle is a square. But if I go up, okay, that's always. A square is always a rhombus. A square is always a rectangle. Alright? A square is always a parallelogram. It's always a kite. It's always anything connected here. That's what it always is. An isosceles trapezoid is always a trapezoid. A trapezoid is always a quadrilateral. Alright? But a quadrilateral is sometimes a trapezoid. Okay? That's kind of what this chart means. Alright, so look at these properties for trapezoid and isosceles trapezoid and a kite. Okay. After that, let's look at these. Okay, a square is a parallelogram. Well, we just looked at this flow chart here. A square's at the bottom, parallelogram's up here. So as I'm moving up, a square is always a parallelogram. The diagonals of a parallelogram bisect each other. So these 10 problems are going to test your knowledge of the shapes. The diagonals of a parallelogram always bisect each other. A rectangle is a square. That's moving down the flow chart. So that's sometimes. A square is a rectangle. That's moving back up. Always. The diagonals of a quadrilateral are perpendicular. Well, there aren't always, that's not always true. That's true here. That's true here. And that's true here. So that's not going to be always. That's going to be sometimes. A parallelogram, parallelogram is a rhombus. Okay, I'm moving down the flow chart, so that's sometimes. Each diagonal of a rectangle bisects the opposite angle. I'll say that again. Each diagonal of a rectangle bisects the opposite angles. Well, is that always going to be true? Okay, what do you think? Is that always going to be true? That could be true. Alright, but I don't know if it'll always necessarily be true. Okay, so we're just going to go. Alright, the diagonals bisect the opposite angles. That's not going to happen. If the rectangle is a square, that'll happen. But if it's not a square, then it won't happen. So that's going to be a sometimes. A square is a rhombus. A square is a super shape, always. A rhombus is a square, sometimes. The diagonals of a rhombus are equal. When that rhombus is a square, that's true. But if it's just a regular rhombus, okay, that's going to be a sometimes. Alright, there's some homework problems you can attempt. Okay, that was a short video. Very short. Alright, but those are all the shapes. This is a great tool for you. Keep this handy. Alright, actually, if you look on the back here, alright, all the properties are there as well. Okay. The missing thing for that day. I don't think so. That one's done.